Something big is projected to happen in the Zambian economy following President Hakainde Hichilema's victory.
KCM is talking of listing on an American stock exchange. Really? 5 years ago, KCM was in liquidation. Did you ever think that today it could attract capital, international capital, by listing on a stock exchange? An ordinary capital provider on the stock exchange is willing to buy shares to raise money. For what? For the Konkola deep mining project, which has been talked about for years and years, and nobody was able to do it. We're doing it.
On the 13th August 2026 presidential election, investors had been watching from the sidelines, or from the terraces if you like, as they waited for the outcome of the election and clarity on the direction Zambia would take. Now that the election has been decided, a new conversation is emerging around the amount of capital that could flow into Zambian businesses.
We'll escalate that $1 billion. It means $200 million will be spent by buying from Zambian companies. And we'll scale that up, Grevazio, to 40%, which is $400 million. Zambian suppliers and contractors will be involved. Never done before in the history of this country. There is a test of the pudding. What else did we do? Mine said, oh, a lot of Zambian suppliers have no experience. I said, we understand that. Put a program, supplier development program, local supplier development program. You saw last week, First Quantum signed agreements with APSA, Zanaco, to provide capital to local suppliers who are being trained by the mines on how to supply. Those programs were never there. So now they'll be able to supply, and the capital is there for them to access to supply, and the mines will pay.
Bloomberg, as usual, is reporting that Zambia's stock exchange expects companies to bring as much as $1 billion in initial public offerings to the market following the election. The exchange has described the potential pipeline as unprecedented. That figure is a projection, not money already raised. The companies involved would still have to decide to list, complete the required processes, and satisfy the country's regulatory requirements. But if the pipeline materializes, it could represent a major expansion of the amount of capital available to Zambian businesses. So what are we actually talking about? An initial public offering, or IPO, is simply when a company offers shares in its business to the public for the first time, instead of one company relying entirely on a bank loan to raise money for expansion. It can offer part of the company to investors. People and institutions buy the shares. The company raises capital. Those investors become shareholders and can benefit if the company grows and performs well. So, if companies eventually raise the $1 billion through IPOs, we are talking about potentially $1 billion being mobilized for businesses to expand. That could mean new mines, factories, energy projects, telecommunications infrastructure, technology property developments, and other investments, depending on the companies that come to market. Now, Bloomberg reports that potential listings could span manufacturing, telecommunications, mining, financial services, and property. The money raised would go into those businesses. That is where the story moves from the stock exchange to the wider economy. Company raises capital, it buys equipment, it expands, it employs people, it buys from suppliers, it produces more, it pays taxes, it may export more. That is how money raised in a capital market can eventually reach an ordinary household. Why are we having this conversation now?
We want to mobilize capital at a lower price, Revasio. We want to mobilize technology, best technology. We want joint ventures. 3, we want value addition. More investment like Best Quantum did in Kansashi to do the concentrators to value add there. But we want even to bring a refinery now, copper refinery.
The $1 billion projection did not appear from nowhere. Zambia's capital market has already gone through a remarkable period. The Lusaka Securities Exchange main index more than doubled in United States dollar terms in 2025 and remains close to record levels, according to the Bloomberg report that created a stronger environment for companies looking to raise capital. Then came a series of major milestones. Zambian companies reached valuations of more than $1 billion United States dollars on the Lusaka Securities Exchange. In 2026, remember, Airtel Zambia became the first company in the exchange history to surpass a $1 billion United States dollars market capitalization, reaching that milestone on 8th June. That is different from raising $1 billion United States dollars. The president's engagement with the financial sector has included discussions around how Zambia can mobilize more capital domestically and make its financial markets deeper and more useful to the economy. The government does not determine the price of shares or decide which companies investors should buy. The Securities and Exchange Commission of Zambia regulates the capital market, while the Lusaka Securities Exchange provides the platform where listed securities are traded. Government's role is to create an environment in which businesses can operate, expand, and attract capital. That means economic stability, predictable policies, infrastructure, electricity, debt management, and a functioning financial system, and confidence in the country's future all matter. What could this mean for Zambians? This is probably the most important part of the story. Capital markets can sound distant from everyday life, but imagine a Zambian company that wants to build a new factory. Instead of borrowing all the money from a bank, it could raise part of that money by selling shares. The company gets the capital. Zambians can buy shares and become part owners. Pension funds can invest on behalf of workers. Insurance companies can invest. International investors can participate. The company then uses the money to expand. That expansion can mean jobs, suppliers, production, taxes, and exports. This is why a stronger stock market matters. It gives businesses another way to raise money and gives Zambians another way to participate in the ownership of companies operating in their economy. Here is the bigger picture. The stock exchange is responding to what is happening around it. Investors look at the kwacha, they look at inflation, they look at copper production, they look at electricity, they look at debt, they look at political stability, they look at the rules governing businesses. They look at whether companies can grow. These are the invisible foundations underneath the numbers we see on the stock exchange. It is similar to a plate of unshima. You see the minimum on the table. You do not see the farmer who produced the maize, the fertilizer that helped grow it, the electricity used to process it, the roads that transported it, or the businesses that supplied the equipment. Yet all those things have to work for that meal to reach the table. The capital market works in much the same way. The policies create the environment. Businesses respond to that environment. Investors respond to the businesses. Capital is raised. Production expands. Jobs are created. The $1 billion United States dollar remains a projection, but the fact that Zambia's capital market is now being discussed internationally at this scale is significant. Bloomberg is tracking a potential pipeline that could be unprecedented for the country's stock exchange, while the stock exchange itself is operating against the backdrop of the market that has already recorded major gains. The question now is what happens next? If these companies come to market and successfully raise the capital, Zambia could enter a period where its businesses have significantly greater access to the money they need to expand. That is the opportunity sitting in front of the country after election. The real story is not the $1 billion United States dollars figure on its own. It is what that capital could build.